Hey everyone, hey Wellness Crew, and welcome to today's reading of Fragments of Light Insights, Breakthroughs, and Epiphanies. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and/or join as it is popping off on the membership tiers. Gentling the Shadow. One morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. feeling a heaviness inside me. I sat up in bed and considered what to do. Taking my awareness inside myself, I went within, and I could feel the heaviness and the pain deep down in my belly. Thank you so much for the like. It was a shadow, a world shadow, my shadow. It didn't matter which. It was just a shadow, just pain, just suffering. But I gave it my attention. It had woken me up after all. So I allowed my mind to explore it and to drift off, to drift back, drift off, and drift back again, as the mind does, thinking of the things of the world. These moments are a journey, like being in a boat on the ocean. The weather changes and the boat moves up and down. Suddenly you remember one of your great teachers, and there's a swell, and you remember the light. You bring the light in, then you forget again, and your contemplation dips. You drift. Something else comes in. You come back again. Eventually, the mind drifts back to the subject on which it hadn't wanted to spend too much time. It is all a dance with the shadow, the discomfort. You just have to wrap your awareness around it and be with it. Whatever it is, just sit with it. Be forgiving and be gentle. Keep bringing the mind back and bringing your awareness back. There is nothing to fear, for it is just some discomfort, just some world shadow that has come up in the night. It could be something that has come up from your ancestral line so that you can process it and transmute it. It could be many things, but whatever it is, there is some grace in that shadow. It is a little treasure box. We have to give ourselves to it and explore it as best we can. If we manage to stay with it, we will carry it with us through the day and discover some of the light inside, and maybe in some way we will see it reflected in our day. Contemplating the shadow means going within and being with the pain there. It may not be a great clenching pain, but it is there and you just have to be with it. So be with it softly. Allow it time and space to reveal what it is and what it wants you to hear. Light a candle, say a prayer. Do something to ignite the city inside you, to bring counterbalance to that suffering. It is a simple teaching and a beautiful practice. Transforming the shadow. We all know suffering in varying degrees. All human beings suffer, and the shadow refers to those aspects of our nature that cause us to suffer. Transforming the shadow is the essence of the gene keys, and it is applicable and of use to all human beings. The shadow can be many things. It can be repressed aspects of our nature that lie deep in our unconscious that we do not accept about ourselves, or it may be that they get vented regularly, but still feel uncomfortable. It could be rage. It could be fear. It could be any number of difficult emotions that are blocked up inside us and causing us difficulty. The shadow is rooted in fear, and at the deepest level, it is rooted in the fear of death. If you think that you are not afraid of death, try looking again into that fear deeply. The fear of annihilation, the fear that you may no longer exist, the fear of dying, of pain, of loss, are all connected to the fear of death. The shadow is all that and much more. It is everything that is unprocessed, everything about ourselves Oh, there we go. Okay. It worked. It finally came back. Ah. It could be any number of difficult emotions that are blocked up inside us and causing us difficulty. The shadow is rooted in fear, and at the deepest level, it is rooted in the fear of death. If you think that you are not afraid of death, try looking again into that fear deeply. The fear of annihilation, the fear that you may no longer exist, the fear of dying, of pain, of loss, are all connected to the fear of death. The shadow is all of that and much more. It is everything that is unprocessed, everything about ourselves that we don't like, that we don't feel comfortable about, and it is the very reason that we suffer in life. The Gene Keys is a system and a modality for embracing the shadow, for getting to know it and unlocking its higher purpose and higher meaning. The Gene Keys show us our shadow patterns and what is hidden inside them. So when you look at a shadow, you can crack it open and find the treasure hidden within. The very essence of the Gene Keys is every shadow contains a gift. It is a one-liner that I often use, and it is not just a handy catchphrase. It is quite possibly the greatest truth humanity could ever discover. We all have deep shadow patterns, whether they are connected with our health, emotions, loved ones, or our relationships. We all have those things in our life that are uncomfortable and can be deeply disturbing. How we grow the shadow out, transform it, and shape it into the beautiful thing inside itself is the work, the alchemy. It is a long labor for all of us because we come with baggage that we carry with us, our karma, and it is there to be transformed. We have to face it and reshape it in order to make the most of our lives because we carry it forward with us. The process begins with acceptance, which sounds like such a simple thing, and yet it is subtle, deep, and challenging. To start with, you have to look at what the pattern is. What is this pattern inside me that is causing me this suffering, this pain? The Gene Keys gives us a mirror, one with a very soft sheen, to look into our suffering. So when we have the courage, we can hold the mirror up and look our suffering in the face and see it for what it is. Then we can begin to feel differently about ourselves and about others, because the softness in the mirror is self-compassion and all that is best inside us. Virtue, patience, tenderness, forgiveness, hope, and many other beautiful qualities. Through mindfulness, contemplation, and meditation, you can get to a place where you can see the pattern and see it without any agenda, without your fears, without even your hopes that it will go. Close your eyes now. Feel it in your body. It has a place. It has a story, but you do not need to worry about the story for now. Just allow the pattern as it is. Allowing is the first step towards acceptance. The patterns have physical, emotional, and mental components, as well as spiritual components that are hiding in the background. The patterns are grounded in our physical bodies, but they are also very emotional. So we have to be gentle with ourselves and look after our body and try to eat and sleep well, even though the pattern itself may prevent that in the beginning. As we work with the pattern and become more familiar with it, we become softer in our approach towards ourselves and we learn to look differently at the shadow. Then many things in our biochemistry will start to change. We all carry memories of difficult things inside us. Whatever kind of torment it may be, whether it is grief, rage, or ancestral anguish that is not even of this life, there is also a deeper reason for everything. And you need to find that reason, that sense of a higher purpose. You do not have to understand it, but you have to let that glint of light in, because with that sense of higher purpose, your life one day could look very different. So, even right at the start, allow for the possibility that the pattern could change, that it could mutate and be transformed. There is a little pinprick of light and a hope that it can get better. It all depends on how you see it, and the core of that is allowing, which you need in order to be able to achieve acceptance. So keep allowing the pattern and looking honestly and softly at it for what it is. And forgive yourself when you wobble or lose yourself in that suffering or become overwhelmed by it. I know from my own experience that it is neither an easy nor a quick process, but it does get softer over time, and the pain gets less as the body mutates. Then the emotions become calmer and quieter, and the mind becomes clearer. It will take time, though. The technique of contemplation allows you to look at the shadows in a kinder, softer light, and to look at yourself and others in a kinder, softer light. So enter into this field of contemplation and locate the shadow, disabling it with your mind first. See how the mind controls it. Then begin to unravel it, and you will realize its higher purpose. The Gene Keys and our community provide you with the resources to do this, as well as ways of going deeper into these processes. You can also find help and support from people who are on the same journey. These are people who sometimes share the gifts of their wonderful stories and advice, and those who have gone deeply into the transmission and the wisdom, and can thus offer their guidance and love as you move through the difficult areas in your life. The Gene Keys teachings are full of resources, all created for the purpose of softening into these shadows and then transforming them. And it is also full of reminders for you to be gentle with yourself in this process. The Gene Keys teachings are full of resources, all created for the purpose of softening into these shadows and then transforming them. And it is also full of reminders for you to be gentle with yourself in this process. The Gene Keys community is also here to help you. Whoever you are, whatever you bring, know that this may not be the only answer to your problems, but it certainly will address the core issue. A core statement of the Buddha is all life is suffering. And the core statement of the Gene Keys is every shadow contains a gift, which is actually a distillation of the teachings of the Buddha and other great teachers as well. Learning to allow, accept, and embrace the shadow, and then watching it transform and your life along with it, can be a very deep and lengthy process. But it is a way to experience considerable change in how your life operates and to discover something extraordinary inside yourself. Something creative and dynamic that possibly you have always known was there. It is a unique journey for each person, but it is a journey that can be taken together. Ultimately, we are here to find a pathway towards love. I hope your journey is deeply fulfilling. Trust in trust. At the deepest level, almost every issue confronting humanity is an issue of trust. If you consider the things in your life that make you feel uncomfortable, it is very likely that you don't fully trust them. If you did, they wouldn't make you feel so uncomfortable. You may still suffer, but there wouldn't be an unease in you around them. Trust doesn't appear as a city of the Gene Keys, but it underlies them all. We have to trust in the cities, trust in the shadows, and trust that the shadows will reveal the gifts. Trust is the answer. Trust everything. That is our learning. That is what we are here for. That is the single message of the Gene Keys, to remind us to trust everything. That means that when you find a lump somewhere in your body, trust that it is there for a reason. It is there to tell you something. If you get ill, trust the illness. It is telling you something, even perhaps that it is your time, in which case, trust the timing of your departure. Trust. Even when looking at the terrible things in the world, trust them. I don't talk a lot about politics. I am not a political thinker, but I look at the things that happen in the world and I sense that underneath them is a sense of deep trust that all will be well. Thank you so much for the like. All is well. I trust that. Everything is just the working out of what the ancients call the Tao, how to exist in harmony with the universe. Trust the Tao, the way, the path, the natural order of things. Trust in Dharma and its teaching, that everything is just playing itself out perfectly. There is a danger, however, in saying that everything is perfect, because everything is very far from perfect from the human viewpoint, and this can lead to misunderstandings. For example, when you see someone suffering terribly, there is nothing perfect about that, it seems, yet at a deep level, there is. There is a deep teaching in that person suffering for them and for everyone else around them. That is what we have to trust underneath. We don't have to like it, but we have to trust it. So if you find yourself feeling critical of something or someone, consider what it is about that person that makes you uncomfortable. And trust that thing, and trust the teaching that it is bringing to you. Imagine yourself trusting everything, every second. That is awakening. That is self-realization. That is absolute trust, absolute surrender. It is a subtle thing that can be misunderstood. Does it mean we don't have to do anything? Of course not. If someone comes at you with something negative, does that mean you don't do anything? Of course not. You have to trust in your response. Trust in what comes up naturally for you, and trust in the teaching that comes out of that. If you react angrily, you will learn something from it, and that is to be trusted. Maybe the next time you will not react so strongly, as the trust in the teaching will have taught you something. Trust is a cellular experience and a cellular knowing. It is a deep relaxation in the cells of the body. You can trust something mentally, and you can even trust it emotionally. But to experience it in the body is the deepest kind of trust. So trust in the coming and going of humans, and the coming and going of our dramas, and the changing shapes of the weather, both internal and external. Trust in the ridiculous dramas of the global stage, and the sometimes hilarious players. Hilarious in the sense that they are like Shakespearean characters acting out their plays, which of course we participate in too, both as players and as audience. This contemplation of trust, deep cellular trust, is something to take into your life. Contemplate the places where you trust and the places where you don't. It is all a learning. We are here on this planet for education. We are not here necessarily to enjoy heaven on earth, although we all have moments of that. Unless we are one of those rare people who have made the transition into pure trust, then most of our life is education. We are here to learn, and we learn in trust. That is the bottom line. Spoiling the moment. Omram Michael Anhoff, a Bulgarian master, spoke of an aspect of our higher consciousness, which he called the body of glory, which is taken from a mystical Christian understanding. Your body of glory is the highest expression of your being expressed as a field of light. Your higher self, in a way, and it exists in dimensions other than this one. It is a secret, intangible thing, and not something you can show to anybody. It is something you can sense, and it can be sensed in other people too. This body of light is something that we can grow, and it may grow in size, in intensity, and in beauty throughout all our lives. One of the ways in which we can grow this body is through powerful expressions of awe in the present moment. By being utterly saturated by it and its beauty, and by allowing it to fill us and flood us. When those moments happen, our body of glory gets an influx of light from the beauty of all those moments, and so it grows. The more of those moments we create for ourselves, the more our body of glory expands around us and through us, and sends out impulses of good fortune, love, and service in all directions. There is now a modern dilemma of giving away the beauty of the moment through our obsession with documenting it and posting it online. So consider the next time you are going to capture the moment or take a picture of yourself doing something wonderful to post on social media, that sharing these moments can become habitual. That is not to say that it can't be a wonderful thing, as it is a part of the natural sharing of our essence with each other, which can be beautiful. Thank you so much for the like. So it is not that I am totally against such things, but I caution not to let it become the obsession that it can for many of us, because then we can lose the golden secrecy of that beautiful pregnant moment that we are experiencing. It could be that we are out in nature or that we make something beautiful, and immediately we want to photograph it and put it online to share. But some things are best not shared, and you might want to consider keeping them as secret moments for yourself, for your body of glory, for your soul. How precious, powerful, and beautiful that is. The irony is that the more we keep those moments of awe for ourselves, the more we build up a self-assurance that then transforms any anxieties that we may have about our sense of self. When we grab the camera to document the moment, it is often due to a lack of self-assurance or a lack of that sense of preciousness. We immediately want to give the moment away, and we give it away too cheaply, instead of drawing its sustenance and its nourishment deep into our souls and letting it live there. So when you are out in the world, you could think about finding the balance between holding those precious moments for yourself and only sharing some of them, just the ones that feel truly appropriate. Thought weather. I often think that thought is like the world weather. It can be a high pressure, high frequency system that pushes all the clouds away, or it could be a low pressure, low frequency system, which puts pressure on you inwardly and attracts the clouds. Thought can transcend. It can open up and connect people, pathways, relationships, and creativity. Yet we unconsciously choose the way we think. Our thoughts are electromagnetic impulses generated in the brain, which have the power of attraction or repulsion. Thought itself is a magnetism, and the realm of thought is magnetic. So high frequency, loving thoughts will draw high frequency, loving thought forms to us. It is our attitude that attracts and molds the thought forms around us, and they cluster together on their own plane, their own dimension, their own reality, which is perhaps why, in the realms of science and medicine, we can't really measure thoughts and have a long way to go in trying to do so. If you observe your thinking and see how it is working, You may notice how certain thought patterns draw other thought patterns to you, how they cluster around you, and you can close and wait, and can close you down. Sorry. For example, if you have a really strong set of opinions, they will draw their thought forms around you like a cloak, creating a shield so that your mind will not be open and flexible, and it won't be able to mold and adapt to higher thought forms, making you stuck. And real quick, I just want to say that Dr. Joe Dispenza has several books actually about this, about how our thoughts can transform things for us. So if you really want to look more into that and look into the studies that he has done, you can definitely look into his books. I believe one of them is called Being Supernatural, and I believe he has two others. I believe there's three books out there. I'm not 100% sure, but his books are really good, and there actually is studies about how thoughts can transform things in our lives and for us, even with our health, with a whole bunch of different things. If you observe your thinking and see how it is working, you may notice how certain thought patterns draw other thought patterns to you, how they cluster around you and can close you down. For example, if you have a really strong set of opinions, they will draw their thought forms around you like a cloak, creating a shield so that your mind will not be open and flexible, and it won't be able to mold and adapt to higher thought forms, making you stuck. The mind takes on and works with what is in the heart and the soul. Thoughts that do not contain love can easily become stuck and then stagnant in the chemistry of the body. Your thoughts need to contain love, because when you expand your thought patterns with loving thoughts, your mind and your aura open up. The clouds move away, and you start to feel a clarity and a lucidity. And you feel the heart open and the breath moving into your body and spirit. Your mind is no longer trapped, and it starts to travel into the possibilities of the cosmos. It starts to become truly creative and full of potential to do anything, even merging with the boundless and the infinite. We need to keep our minds young in that way, not by adding more thoughts, but by sifting. When we read something or listen to someone's latest theory, or watch an interview or a film, we have to sift all that information. And when we find things that close us down, it is best to let them go and not attract or draw them in. That's wonderful, Natalie. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a very good point. That's a very succinct way to say this. And again, this book, Fragments of Light, is insights, breakthroughs, and epiphanies. So it's a lot of different stories about his insights and epiphanies on the gene keys. But that was very succinctly put. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We need to keep our minds young in that way, not by adding more thoughts, but by sifting. When we read something or listen to someone's latest theory, or watch an interview or a film, we have to sift all that information. Absolutely, you're welcome. And when we find things that close us down, it is best to let them go and not attract or draw them in. For instance, if you found yourself among a lot of people arguing in a room, then rather than engaging with those arguments, it is better to watch and listen, and perhaps at some point inject a higher thought, a more open thought to break the chain and the pattern. Then the higher emotions that were blocked by the negative thoughts could be freed. A clear mind repels doubt and confusion, and once we have cleared our mind and our thoughts, the emotional field begins to open up and we feel relaxed again, experiencing a sense of clarity. Thank you so much, Antonio. I appreciate that. Emotions largely rest upon our thinking and rely upon the way we think. Thank you so much for the like. That is how, during childhood, when we are very receptive. We are so easily programmed and reprogrammed by the feelings and voices of others, which become our own thoughts and feelings and our inner voice. So think about the thought weather that you are creating in your daily life and see how it is programming you, your life, and the people around you. See what different kinds of thoughts you can attract by changing the magnetism. You can do this through contemplation. When you contemplate something luminous, something higher, something beautiful, and if you listen and take in thoughts that are of a higher nature, the weather clears and the sun comes out inside you. And when you share that open mindedness, that open heartedness, and that sunshine, it is infectious to others. The 6 stages of transformation in self, relationships, and community. The key to experiencing a breakthrough is transformation. I have found that there are 6 stages to any transformation process within an individual, a relationship, a community, or an entire system or organization. The first stage is dissonance. If you take 2 outputs and they do not match each other in their energy, this is dissonance. It is common throughout the universe, and it happens whenever 2 or more things are not in harmony, not in synchronization. In a relationship, if you are aware, you can feel dissonance when it arrives, and it is always uncomfortable. Many relationships persist in dissonance, with people just reacting to it and never becoming transformed, just going around and round in a loop. It can be the same with communities, governments, and countries. Dissonance is there to tell us something. It is the beginning of a process and a very magical journey. So it is to be respected, perhaps also even welcomed, in our hearts when we feel it. Dissonance also applies to us as individuals. We can have days when we feel dissonant, when there is something in the stellar field, something in the weather patterns, or just something out there that feels dissonant. Do you remember the physics lesson where you drop 2 different things into a wave tank and then you watch the waves coming together and see them colliding and creating an interference frequency? Eventually, the patterns begin to harmonize, and it is the same with us. So, dissonance is really important as the baseline of all transformation, all creative processes, of evolution itself. It all begins with dissonance. The second stage is feedback. When you go to a gig or a performance, somebody may be working with the audio and microphones, and suddenly you get a deafening burst of feedback. You get that really loud, grating sound, which is the feedback that is coming out of the dissonance. First comes the dissonance, and then the feedback arrives out of it. And the dissonance can be subtle. So, unless you have a finely tuned awareness, for example, through being a deep mediator, it can be that you are not aware of the dissonance until there is feedback. Dissonance is felt deeply within us, and if you are busy about your life, you may not even notice it because you are used to it. Perhaps you are having a bad day and are just plowing on with things. So, unless you pause, the dissonance will probably go unnoticed. Pausing allows you to tune in and recognize when there is something deeply uncomfortable inside you that you need to pay attention to. In any system or relationship, dissonance creates feedback, which might, for example, be anger erupting out of the dissonance. The relationship or the system then alerts itself to the dissonance, and this can be positive or negative. It just depends. You can even look at a negative and turn it into a positive. A burst of anger or irritation in a relationship, or someone losing their cool within a community, is a valuable piece of feedback, an alert that is saying there is some dissonance at the core. Even if that person or that behavior is very challenging, take that feedback on board. It is saying, listen here, there is some dissonance. There is a process underway which is probably going to be uncomfortable, but we need to follow it and listen to it. Healthy feedback is when you can say, I sense dissonance, and you do not blame it on anyone. In the negative shadow state, the feedback gets transferred as blame, in the process psychologists call transference. You transfer the blame of the feedback onto the other person instead of realizing that it is just dissonance in the field and isn't about that person necessarily. It is something passing through the relationship, the individual, the body, the community, or the organization. And that does not mean that suddenly that person who is producing the feedback is very important or that they are necessarily right. They are just an aspect of the dissonance of the whole. It also does not mean that there is anything wrong with them. It is likely they just have their own personal wounding, and they need to be responsible for that. One needs to be responsible for one's feedback. You can give positive feedback and say, this isn't working, I didn't like this, I feel like this. You own the feedback inside yourself, but you offer it with respect and courtesy, and with no blame. That is healthy feedback. Stage 3, assimilation, is a special one and is kind of magical. Assimilation is when the alchemy starts to occur. The feedback phase is when you become aware of the pattern. And the assimilation phase is when the pattern starts to transmute inside you because you are aware of it. It is uncomfortable because now you are aware that there is a process going on that you are not in control of, and you don't know where it is going, and you just have to surrender to it all. All transformation at some point reaches this magical phase, and receiving healthy feedback means that you will move through the assimilation process more easily. When you are in the assimilation phase, you can feel the darkness, but you can also see a glimpse of light. In a sense, you are in purgatory. Something is changing inside you or inside the group, but it has not yet become clear. But you can feel a stirring, and it is really important to honor this. It is a chaos zone. People who are grounded are very good in chaos zones because they can sit within the conflict, look at it, accept it, and embrace it. Conflict can be very beneficial, and it can be very creative if it is approached in that way. Assimilation is a really important phase. The body has to assimilate the information of the transformation, and this can go on for some time. In a relationship, the body of each person and the body of the relationship and its chemistry will make the transformation. If each individual in a relationship is able to maintain courtesy, the transformation may well occur in a very healthy way and much more swiftly. Whereas if they are fighting and stuck in a feedback loop, the assimilation does not really occur, at least not in a healthy way. Assimilation is different from feedback because feedback is just the first awareness of dissonance, while assimilation is a complex internal process. The fourth phase is called sharing, which comes out of assimilation like a beam of light. Sharing is about authenticity, and sharing authentically how you feel, and you have to go through some assimilation in order to share clearly. On an individual level, sharing is really about you seeing for the first time what is happening in your life and being able to share it with another person who you trust or love. So speak it, share it, draw it, or dance it. Find some way to externalize it so that you can bring it out of yourself and share it. Something needs to emerge from the very internal process of assimilation. In a relationship, the sharing is a critical phase because you have to share without apportioning blame. This makes me feel, or I feel. Often in the sharing phase, a lot of emotion comes out, but it is not in the reactive feedback stage anymore. It has been processed already. After some time has passed, the partners in the relationship have had some time to reflect. Perhaps they have been apart and come back together, and then without being codependent, they find they can share in an authentic way. When sharing in a group or community, it is essential that the sharing is listened to. It is as simple as that. There do not have to be answers. There just has to be the sharing, so that the voices, the complaints, criticisms, hurt, anger, love, all of it can come out. Everyone has a different view, so all the sharing is of great value, and it needs to come out and be heard. The fifth stage is called crystallization or distillation. It is when out of the sharing, suddenly you come to the moment, the realization within. I have gone through this process. I have assimilated, I have shared, and I have nothing left I need to put out there. You realize that you have learned what you needed to learn, and you are done. Everyone is done, and it is almost the end. You have gone through the stages, you have shared and externalized it, and suddenly you understand. Aha, now I know what this experience has really been for. I've unlocked the purpose in the suffering, the higher purpose. It is wonderful. In a relationship, both partners can look at each other and own their own part of it. They see what they contributed, the good and the bad. The lesson is learned individually, and together they can distill the truth of what has just occurred. Then the relationship becomes stronger because it has gone through that transformation, and a bonding occurs through that distillation. The sharing is all words, with a lot of emotion and soul stuff coming out, but the distillation is really clear and economical. The emotional stage moves into the quintessence stage, and it is very powerful. In a community or organization, there is often one person, or possibly two key people, who actually distill the truth of what has happened and put it into words or express it in a really clear way. Many people remain silent because the distillation has occurred inside them, and they have understood what the lesson is, and they no longer need to share. It is anchored within them, and they feel that they have learned through the experience, and the group also learns through the experience. There is a distillation for everyone, and often a leader or voice for the community will express it eloquently on behalf of the whole. The sixth and final stage of transformation is gratitude. This is the afterglow, because having distilled the lesson, you feel a release. You have moved from dissonance to gratitude. Now you are suddenly grateful for the dissonance and you think, wow, what a journey, and feel that it is done. That phase, that Lila, that drama, whatever it was, or how big it was, whatever crisis that you went through, you now understand it and have let go and moved on. You are stronger for it and feel grateful for the whole process and journey of it. In a relationship, it is the same. What often happens is that love blossoms at that point. Appreciation and respect grow between the pair. They look at each other and feel the love come back, having gone through a phase of no love and confusion, chaos and assimilation. The depth of gratitude for staying the course can be extraordinary. Their hearts start to beat in harmony again, and they can look the other person in the eyes and say, I'm so grateful that you did this, or said that, or that you stayed with me. Then the transformation is complete. In a community, this is beautiful because a mutual appreciation has come about. The sense of gratitude is felt throughout the community because something has been distilled collectively, as well as each individual distilling things on a personal level. There is such a rush of gratitude and a kind of uplift as the community reaches a level of coherence that was not there before. All systems, individuals, and relationships go through these phases, beginning with a little spark of dissonance. Then the feedback comes and is assimilated through that process of alchemy. There needs to be a sharing of authentic voices, then the distillation, and finally, the gratitude. During one of these processes, in which we all are for most of the time, it is really important to realize that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. You do not have to know exactly where you are, although it is usually pretty clear which phase you are in. It can be very encouraging to identify where you are in the process because it helps you commit to the process through to the end. If you give up, then you never get to the gratitude or the distillation, and you will miss the gift of the transformation. Whether you are applying it to a relationship, a wider community, or an organization, or just for yourself, I hope you can begin to see the wonder of this universal process that applies to all life forms and systems. The very cosmos operates according to these stages. Our entire lifetime is there in those 6 stages, but they can also be contained just in a brief experience within a day. You will see it everywhere, the fundamental universal pattern woven into every strand of the evolutionary impulse. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off. And I will see you on the next video or live stream. Be well, stay wild.